So far we've looked at two different ways of marking up prices from that cost to selling price. Remember our general formula, we have our cost plus our markup has to equal our selling price. And in one method we looked at based on cost, so the 100% went with the cost. The other method was based on selling price, so the 100% went with the selling price. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just review those two quick. So let's say we are given a cost of $390, and there's a 40% markup on selling price, and we're going to be asked to find that selling price. So we have cost plus markup equals selling price. We're going to have percents and dollars, and we fill in what we're given. We're given $390 cost. So on the cost, dollar side is $390. 40% markup, so on the percent side for markup, we put in the 40%. The hidden piece here, or the disguised piece, is it's markup on selling price, which tells us 100% goes with the selling price. And remember, these three numbers have to add up. So blank plus 40 equals 100 tells us that this has to be 60 here. 60% plus 40% equals 100. If we have to work backwards and do 100 minus 40 to get 60, that's fine. That's how we have to calculate it. We're asked to find the dollar amount of the selling price, which is right there. So we have a row where we know both the percent and the dollars. In this problem, that's the cost. We have a row that has what we're looking for, the selling price, and we know the number on the other side, so we're all set there. So that means we can ignore this middle row here. So our proportion, we have the 60 over 100 equals 390 over blank, so that's our missing number. So we'll cross multiply 100 times 390 are the diagonals, divided by 60. Giving us $650 is the dollar amount of the selling price. Next example might be that we're given a selling price of $560, and we're told that we have a 60% markup on cost. And we're asked to find the cost. So our table is the same, cost plus markup equals selling price. And we still have percents on one side and dollars on the other. We're given $560 for the selling price. So on the dollar amount for the selling price, we put in $560. 60% markup, so 60% goes in for the markup. Also, it's markup on cost. Now that's saying that the 100% goes with the cost. So that's the key trick. Notice up here, it was markup on selling price, so the 100% with the selling price. Down here, markup on cost, the 100% goes with the cost. But those percents still add up. Just like up here, it was 60 plus 40 had to give us 100. Down here, 100 plus 60 has to give us that percent for the selling price. 100 plus 60 will be 160%. We're asked to find the cost. That's this right here. So we have, again, the selling price. We have both the percent and the dollar amount. We're looking for the dollar amount of the cost, and we do have the percent on the other side. So those are the rows we're going to use. Means we don't need that middle row in this case again. So our proportion is 100 over 160 equals blank over 560. Cross multiplying 100 times 560 divided by 160 is going to give us $350 is our cost. So you can see there's that big difference whether we're based on cost or based on selling price. Depends on where we're going to put that 100% in our table. On cost, the 100% goes with the cost. If it's based on selling price, the 100% had to go with the selling price. So the main purpose of this video, one of the main purposes, is to discuss why would you ever do it differently? Well, it depends on which side you're looking at it from. If you want to find an easy way of finding the selling price, easy way to set a selling price. Well, we know one thing that we know about a product is we always know what it cost us. If we're that distributor, we know what we paid for the product. So the easiest way to set a selling price is to simply take a percentage of that cost and add it on to get a selling price. That is a markup based on cost. You know, if we had a product that was $400 cost, and let's say we decide that in order to meet our, cover our overhead and expenses and make a small profit, we need a 25% markup on cost. We would set that price. Cost plus markup equals selling price. $400 goes in the cost. 25% goes in the markup based on cost, so 100% goes in the cost. We add those up to get 125% for the selling price, and now we find that selling price. We're going to cross multiply and divide. 125 times 400 divided by 100, we get a $500 selling price. That seems pretty logical. You know what it cost you, you want to set the selling price. Why would we ever want to go the other way? Well, at the end of the month when we're doing our bookkeeping, we know how much product we bought that month, but we didn't necessarily sell everything we bought. So when we're looking at what we sold, we're looking at sales. We know the total sales revenue, total cash register receipts if you want to. You just pull it up in the cash register. Total sales. Well, if we want to go back and figure out what those items cost us, what the total cost of those goods that we sold were, we could go back and look them all up. But if we had if we knew what percentage of that selling price was the markup, we could go back and find the cost off of that. This is using a percent markup on selling price. We know the total amount that we sold. We can figure out the cost from that if we know what that markup is. So, looking at something that we sold, selling price of $500, and we're given that it is a 20% markup on that selling price, our table, cost plus markup, equals selling price. We put in $500 as the dollar amount of our selling price. 20% is our percent of our markup on selling price, so 100% goes in for the selling price. These have to add up here, so the cost is 80%. I should have told you I want to find what the total cost was of that item. So now we're looking for this amount right here. We don't need that middle row. We'll cross multiply and divide. The 80 times 500 divided by 100 gives us $400 is the total cost of that item that was sold for $500. So depending on what point in the month we're on, what process we're doing, There are times that it is handier to have the percent markup based off the cost like we did up here, and there are other times where it's more useful for us, more productive, to have that percent markup calculated as based on the selling price. The result of that is there are times we need to be able to convert back and forth from markup based on cost to markup based on selling price. We need to figure out how to translate or convert between them. So let's say that we have we know that we have a 20% markup on selling price. And we want to convert that to a percent markup on cost. Now you'll notice we don't have a dollar amount given for anything here. We're going to make those up. So we've got cost plus markup equals selling price. We have percents on this side. We have dollars on this side. We are given 20% markup on selling price. That means 20% goes in the markup. On selling price means 100% would go there. We're going to make up a dollar amount here. I'm just going to say that we have a $5,000 selling price. Just because usually you got numbers in the thousands are fairly easy to work with. Cost plus markup equals selling price means the cost has to be 80%. So I'm going to fill in the rest of the dollar side over here using those percents. First thing I'm going to find is that cost. So I'm going to ignore that middle row for a minute. Now cross multiply and divide. 80 times 5,000 divided by 100 is going to give us $4,000 is the dollar amount of our cost. Now if I ignore the top row for a minute, I can do 20 times 5,000 divided by the 100 is going to give us $1,000 is our markup. So that was a 20% markup on selling price. These numbers, we made up this selling price of $5,000, but the ratio of those numbers is just saying no matter what that selling price is. But we want to convert it to a markup on cost. So we're going to pretend these numbers aren't here anymore. I'm going to cross them off for a little bit. And I'm just going to put in a new column over here for markup for the percent. And this is going to be the markup on cost. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in 100% for the cost. Because if it's markup based on cost, that's where the 100% goes. I'm looking for the percent markup. So I'm looking for that percent, that number right there. So what I can do now is I can take 100 times the 1,000 and divide by the $4,000 there. I'm using that proportion. I'm ignoring that bottom row. So 100 times 1,000 divided by 4,000 gives us 25. That is equivalent to a 25% markup on cost. So what that's telling us is that 20% markup on selling price that we started with is equivalent to a 25% markup on cost. Something you'll notice here is we didn't have to fill in these dollar amounts. If I just look at the percent markups here, if I had filled in these percents for the markup on selling price, I could have come back, put in this extra column with the 100% in cost, and looking for this right here, that percent markup on the cost, that's 25%. I'm going to write it off to the side, but leave it blank for now. We could have just cross-multiplied right here, treated that as a proportion right there. 100 times 20 divided by 80 is going to give us 25 to get that 25%. So yes, that 20% markup on cost is equivalent to a 25% markup. Or sorry, 20% markup on selling price is equivalent to a 25% markup on cost. Let's go the other way. We have, let's say we're given that we used a 50% markup on cost. And we want to convert to an equivalent markup on the selling price. We're going to use the same type of tool we used up here, but we noted that we didn't really even need to put in these imaginary dollar amounts. So let's set it up and show you how that works if we don't even bother to put those in. So cost plus markup equals selling price. We got percents over here. I'm going to leave the dollars blank. We are given 50% markup on cost. So 50% goes here. It's a markup on cost. That means 100% goes with the cost. Now those add up. So we know that 150%, 100 plus 50, has to go with the selling price. If I want to convert that to a markup based on selling price, we know that this was the markup based on cost because 100% goes with the cost. For selling price, markup based on selling price, the 100% has to go with the selling price. So 100% would have to go there. I need to find what this percent here would be for the percent markup. Note, I can ignore this top piece, and I have a little proportion right here. Blank over 100 equals 50 over 150. And I can cross multiply and divide there. 100 times 50 is 5,000. Divided by 150 should give us 33.333, or 33 1/3%. So if going from a 50% markup on cost, which was this column right here, we have an equivalent of a 33% markup on selling price. And as we said, it's very convenient if we know that we're starting out with that 50% markup on selling price. In other words, we're taking whatever something costs and we're marking it up by 50% to set the selling price. Well, at the end of the month, we can use that equivalent 33 1/3% markup on selling price to take our total cash register receipts and calculate what the total cost of those goods sold was. We can work backwards from it. So that is converting percent markup on cost to percent markup on selling price, or the other way around, percent markup on selling price to a percent markup on cost.